Hey, it's Craig. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Canadian History X early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Hey everyone, Craig Baird here. Before I begin today's story, I want to take a moment and ask that you check me out on Patreon at www.patreon.com/CanadaEHX. There are several tiers with great benefits, from ad-free content to t-shirts and other cool stuff. And if you're a fan of Canadian History X, make sure you check out my other shows, From John to Justin and Canada, A Yearly Journey. And don't forget, you can also donate directly to the show at www.canadaehx.com. It helps keep this show going. Alright, on with the show.
A listener's note. The following episode contains coarse language, adult themes, and content of a violent and disturbing nature, and may not be suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
In the Rocky Mountains near present-day Pincher Creek, Alberta, there's a legend of a gold mine with such treasures that whoever finds it will be set for life, as will several generations of their descendants. There's a catch, though. Those seeking its fortune will encounter a great deal of bad luck or even death. One prospector shared a story while drinking in a saloon how he hoped to strike it rich one day, but he would never go looking for it. When asked why, he simply said, "It's cursed." But does the mine exist? Some say it does, while others say it's a simple campfire tale. What is true is that no one has been able to find it in over 125 years. The legend of the Lost Lemon Mine is one of the great mysteries of the Canadian Rockies. I'm Craig Baird, and this is a special episode of Canadian History X. There are many variations of the tale of the Lost Lemon Mine, and the details always seem to change. In fact, nearly every article I read and every site I visited had a different version. To keep things consistent and less complicated, I will relate the most common version of the tale, with some other variations mixed in. The story of the Lost Lemon Mine begins in the autumn of 1870, although some sources say 1879, with a white prospector named Frank Lemon and his indigenous friend, Blackjack. The two men had been searching for gold in the Rocky Mountains when they found a gold deposit between the Crow's Nest Pass and the Highwood River in southwestern Alberta. This area of Canada is quite beautiful. I lived in the area at one point, and it can be stunning to see. You have the high, rising Rockies next to the foothills of Alberta. Great rivers flow down these mountains, which are often capped in snow and ice almost year-round. To the south, you have the area where the Frank Slide happened, and to the north, the Kicking Horse Pass, which is a white-knuckling drive if you don't like heights. Now, before you start thinking of going and finding this legendary mine yourself, keep in mind the distance between those 2 points on the map is 60 kilometers through mountainous terrain. It won't be an easy find. Dense forest, cliffs that drop 1,000 feet to one side, and a tall slab of mountain with the occasional rockfall on the other side. Bears, cougars, and the assorted mountain goats are the only neighbors. Along with the beautiful waterfalls and the majestic views is a real sense of danger. One wrong step could be your last. One miner interviewed in 1930 said the mine was near the Courcelette Peak, which is located in the Rockies about 75 kilometers southwest of High River, Alberta. Yet, no one has found it in the century of looking. And people have looked because the mine is thought to have $7 billion worth of gold in it. How do they estimate how much gold is in a mine that may only be legend? Well, I don't have an answer for that. Anyways, the story says that Frank Lemon and Blackjack found the gold mine, and they got into an argument over whether to camp and start mining immediately or take some gold nuggets with them and get someone to pay for an operation and return in the spring. They couldn't agree and they went to bed without a resolution. You know what they say, never go to bed angry. Well, Lemon was still mad, and in the middle of the night he crawled out of his blankets, picked up an axe, and killed his friend Blackjack with a single blow to the head. Immediately realizing what he did, Lemon built a huge fire to burn the body. He then picked up a gun and left the area. If killing your friend wasn't bad enough, things were about to get worse. Lemon began to lose his mind, convinced he was being pursued by the ghost of Blackjack as he fled the mountains. Another version of the story states the two men mined gold in quartz for 3 weeks, valued at $27,000, a massive fortune for the time, but they could not agree on who would have the gold claim and who would have the quartz claim. In this version, an argument ensued and Lemon killed Blackjack with either an axe or a gun. To be clear, whichever version you prefer, Blackjack ends up dead. But in the second version, unbeknownst to Lemon, two Blackfoot men had been watching from the trees. They saw the pair strike gold, and they witnessed the argument and the subsequent murder. They went to their chief, who swore them to secrecy and made them promise to never tell a soul about the gold. For the indigenous, gold was not seen in the same way as it would be seen with Europeans. It was something that could be turned into a trinket, of course. But it was when Europeans arrived that the indigenous saw what they would do for gold. From the Fraser River gold rush to the Klondike, gold meant the uprooting of indigenous communities, followed by violence and death. Here's Crew Williams, the host of Dead Man's Curse, Slumax Gold.
First Nations had no value for gold, but the Europeans were here. And as you see the progression after first contact, I mean, it was rapid buildup. Everybody wanted to be here. It was the final frontier. The land was so rich that all you had to do was show up to win.
In this version, it is the chief who apparently put a curse on the area where the murder happened. As for Lemon, he returned to town filled with guilt. The legend doesn't state which town, as Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, and Calgary, the largest communities in southern Alberta today, didn't quite exist yet. The Northwest Mounted Police didn't patrol the area, and the interior of British Columbia, stretching from modern-day Vancouver to Golden, BC, right near the Alberta border about an hour from Banff, had no real settlements until you reached the Fraser River, closer to the lower mainland. There were some whiskey forts, but it's likely he went to Montana. Finding a priest, he confessed about what he had done. The priest promised to keep his secret, and he asked a local trapper named John McDougall to go to the area, find Blackjack's body, and give it a proper burial. McDougall took with him a group of miners, just in case there is actually gold there. You can't blame a guy for wanting to get rich. On their way to the mine, they stopped in Fort Kipp, a whiskey fort near present-day Lethbridge. McDougall then promptly drank himself to death. The miners returned home, and Blackjack was never buried. 2 years later, the same indigenous man who witnessed Lemon kill Blackjack saw another man heading towards the mine. He's not identified in the stories, but they found his body the following year outside the mine. Over the years, other hopeful miners asked Lemon to take them to the mine, but every time he approached the area, he was overcome with anxiety and fear and refused to journey any further. And for the rest of his life, his mental and physical health declined, and by all accounts, Lemon was never the same again. I know I've only mentioned two real protagonists in this tale, Lemon and Blackjack, but some accounts have a third character in the story. Lafayette French initially funded Lemon and Blackjack's expedition for gold. He then went on a 30-year-long quest to find the mine and its riches. And according to one account of the legend, he found it. Overcome with excitement, he wrote a letter from the cabin he was staying in nearby in detail of his success and where the mine was located. That night, the cabin burned to the ground and the letter was destroyed. French was able to escape, but contracted pneumonia from exposure that night, and by the time he found help, he was close to death. He sent for Dan Riley, a longtime friend, and started telling him that he found the Lost Lemon mine. Riley told him to rest, and they would speak in the morning. But by the time the sun rose, French was dead. Dan Riley later became a Canadian senator and launched his own searches for the mine, but was never successful. His son George Riley took up the cause, but he also never found it. There was yet another man who knew the location of the mine, or at least the general area, and that was the unnamed priest whom Lemon confessed to. In 1883, he organized an expedition to find the mine based on the information Lemon gave him. Before he could venture out, though, a forest fire destroyed any trace of the route or markers that would have guided him on his way to the mine. Some versions of the story state a rockslide fell over the area, burying the strike forever. Nonetheless, the Lost Lemon Mine legend was kept alive well into the 20th century. Here's Crew Williams, the host of Dead Man's Curse, Slumax Gold.
Got to keep in mind, a mine is a little hole in the dirt, somewhere in a mountain, in a usual hard place to get to. They usually get exposed by landslides and fractures, and you're able to see it. And then you got to get up there and then you got to dig in. So just getting to it's a process, let alone keeping it maintained, which is a big thing.
In the autumn of 1848, two Yellowknife prospectors named Albert Peterson and Jay Hunt went in search of the mine. They believed they had the location because of a sample of gold ore they found in the Rockies west of High River in 1934. The sample was found along the headwaters of the Highwood River, which is near to where the Lost Lemon mine is reported to have been located. If you think I'm going to shock you with a fun tidbit, sadly, I don't have much. They didn't find the mine, and at this point, they faded to history. But then, in September 1949, while building a highway through the foothills of the Rockies between Morley and Coleman, it was reported that construction crews came upon the mine. Morley is a small community on the Stoney Nakoda Reserve about 30 minutes east of Banff on the Trans-Canada Highway. Coleman is 160 kilometers to the south in the Crow's Nest Pass near Frank, Alberta. This proved to be a false alarm, and the Lemon Mine continued to be just out of reach and seemed to exist only in the mists of time. If there's one thing these stories have in common, it's they all claim to have found the Lost Lemon Mine, only for it to be a false alarm. And this continued throughout the 20th century. In 1983, Thomas Mooney from Ontario said he had located the Lost Lemon Mine based on information he got from his wife. She claimed to have found gold in the area in the 1950s. And you can guess what happened next. No gold was found. Then 6 years later, in 1989, Ron Stewart, a geologist at the University of Alberta, staked a 388 square kilometer claim at the Crow's Nest Pass, believing he had found the mine. He believed his claim would produce 17 million ounces of gold. I was unable to find how much he actually made off his claim, but if it was anything, it was far from the legendary strike the Lost Lemon Mine was reported to have been. That same year, Vince Janostak, hearing of Stewart's claim, decided he was going to take to the hills to find the mine himself. He was 73 years old and had been prospecting for much of his life, but nothing substantial would come from his hopes of finding the mine. The Lost Lemon Mine has never been found, but it doesn't look like people looking for endless riches will ever stop looking. And 130 years later, we're still talking about the fabled mine and the storied lives of Lemon and Blackjack. Now that you've learned the story of the Lost Lemon Mine, I want to introduce you to Crew Williams. He's a prospector and host of the new podcast Dead Man's Curse, Slumach's Gold, a historical true crime show that investigates the curse and legend surrounding a lost gold mine at Pitt Lake in British Columbia. Tell me a bit about Dead Man's Curse. You know, how did you, I know it's a TV show, but also how did this evolve? How did you get on that path?
Well, I mean, let's be real. It was a legend and a mystery way before TV was even a thing. Okay, so this goes way back into BC history. The most beautiful thing for me was that my family was the one who egged me onto this, told me about the legend, told me there was a bunch of Indians that would scalp me and leave me for dead if I went looking for it. I kind of took that as a challenge because I always get along with First Nations, you know, and I was like, I didn't think they would be that way. So the more I researched into Slumach, the more I just related to his character. I'm not really a people person. I love the woods, not the hood. So for me, I wanted to get out as much as I could, and that was freedom. You know, there's nobody out there to mess with you. Nothing but nature, beauty, God's land. Yeah. So when you throw gold into the mix, well, now we're talking for motivation, a reason to be out there. And if you find that mine, that changes your life and everybody else you know. So yeah, I took it on a lifelong mission. And then now here we are on a television show, you know. I lucked out. I met Adam Palmer, one of my best friends now. He's the only one who knows more than me about the legend that I knew, and the only one capable enough to go out there and actually get it. So we teamed up. Here we are. Dead Man's Curse.
And what challenges are there to putting this together? You know, obviously you're filming and you're recording a podcast in an isolated location. It's not like you're driving down a cul-de-sac to a mine. Like you're in the middle of nowhere, like you said. So, you know, with me, I'm recording in my spare room and everything. It's easy. So what's it like for you?
Hey, it's not easy. I'm going to tell you that right now. Podcasting's hella hard. It's an art form in itself, number one. Number two, to be able to just find content that is actually cool, that you like, the viewers like, and then being able to relay that in the proper cadence and all these new words that I'm learning is very, very challenging. So definitely each have their own challenges and their own advantages. For me, it's just having the support. When you have a full team, that's something that prospectors aren't used to. It's normally some crazy old man off in a creek, watching his own back, going insane out in the woods alone. You know, we've got a whole squad with us, like a family out there. So if me and Adam start acting goofy, Don's there to check us. When Don starts acting goofy, Taylor's there to stop him. So it's like the perfect element. You got to love it because, man, things get weird out in the bush. You know, it's your mind can play tricks on you. The land can play tricks on you. And then now with the release of the show, I've got prospectors from all over the world hitting me up. People that have been involved with this for family generations are giving me their information and passing it down. It's like, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it because it's like, that was great grandfather's mission. That was grandfather's mission. And they're passing it down because it hasn't been fulfilled. A couple of them do claim they do know exactly where it is. I've even gotten GPS coordinates. So season on season, we're building. We're building on the footsteps of those who came before us. We're now taking in the information for those who are, you know, gladly just giving it up to help this get solved. And in the end, we'll see what happens.
Now, tell me a bit about, you know, Slumac and this curse and this mine. You know, what is it for somebody who, you know, is I'm in Alberta, so I've never even heard of this mine before I was alerted to your show.
Okay, well, the pit is the most harshest terrain in BC. We've been all over BC now, and for some reason, it's like time just forgot the pit. The logging companies only pushed in so far. You've got a lot of old growth. Old growth equals old animal populations. So the biggest and the best are still out there, untouched. Bears, timber wolves that shoulders are higher than the old growth stumps, paws as big as your face. Wolverine came through our camp. And I mean, I've never even seen Wolverine claws before. I had to ask, I was like, what are these? You know, because they're triangle shaped, like literal Wolverine claws, like X-Men. And it's like, every day is dangerous. Every night is worse. I couldn't do it by myself. I wouldn't make it back. And then you see why so many people didn't make it back, whether it's the curse, whether it's the land, whether it's the animals. It's almost like everything stacked up against you. And that's why I'm so thankful to have the First Nations with us out there, because this is their land and you feel it when you're out there. You almost feel like you get a pass because you're doing it the right way. Like in the beginning, I was obsessed with gold. Don't get me wrong, still love gold. Okay. But I like getting gold the right way, not the wrong way, because I've seen what happens when you do it the wrong way. You know, these stories of these prospectors, heck, we even found that looked like, I don't know if I'm supposed to say it, looked kind of like a very bad scene, we'll say, just for the legalities of it. And you could tell something happened out there, you know, and it just makes it that much more realer. You forget the cameras are there. They're all dressed in black like ninjas hiding behind trees. So when you're in the zone and you're like head deep in a cache, bringing out history that no one has even seen the light of day for over 100 years, you know, it's like you don't care about a TV show. You care about that moment that you're in. So for me, it's the most realist thing I've ever done. As far as the TV side of it goes, I'm just glad we get to share it with everybody. I'm hearing great feedback. Like families are watching this together. Like when was the last time you sat down with your family and watched a TV show? Like a movie I get, but TV, I mean, it's something special. I'm just glad to be a part of it.
With British Columbia, I think more than any other province, gold mining is probably a major part of its history. And, you know, with something like the Fraser River Gold Rush, where you saw prospectors come in and push Indigenous off their land and cause a major disruption, why is it so important now, like how you're doing it, where you are working with the Indigenous and, you know, being respectful of their land and in your attempts to find this lost mine?
Well, that's how Slumac did it. He was ahead of his time, over in the UK, the Scots, all of them, they were just coming. They call it New Caledonia. They came so strong. So for Slumac, seeing the advancement, seeing these people come and seeing that the center of all their wealth and riches seemed to be gold, and he knew where it was, he didn't go out there and strip mine the place. He didn't go out there and dynamite the place. I've got a theory about this, which we will get into in season 2 coming up in September. But he did it the right way. He took what he needed when he needed it. He wasn't greedy. He knew that they would be. He made sure nobody else could find it because he knew the effects that would have on the land and his people. So, yeah, if there's ever a better model, it's Slumac's model. You take what you need. Don't be greedy because it will catch up to you, and rest his soul, caught up to him in the end too.
Mm-hmm. And kind of related to that, and, don't be greedy. What do you hope people get out of the show and also the podcast? What hope they learn about, BC's history, their own history, the Indigenous prospecting?
Well, it's just sharing. In this world of overloaded content, there's a lot of garbage out there. Like my granny said, guard your brain, because like what you take in is going to make you who you are. And for me, what better way to give some motivation to like my students, to the next generation of prospectors, to heck, those guys in the office that are bored doing a 9 to 5, come on out on the weekends, get the metal detector, get out there. Because there's so much history in the ground that I'm actually more excited now about pulling history out rather than gold, because BC is covered. And when we go to these places, you don't expect to find something. But when you do, like, you are now part of history. So, for me, I'm just glad to be a big part of the show. And I know season 2 is going to be a hit. I can't wait to share it with everybody else.
Do you feel like the landscape of BC lends itself to these kinds of legends? Like I said, I'm in Alberta. I can see, 30 kilometers in one direction, no problem. And I did live in BC, like in Rossland and the Okanagan. So I know kind of how it is. But do you feel like the landscape of BC, because, it's mountains, there's so many trees, there's, mystery around every corner when you're driving even, does that kind of lend itself to creating these kinds of stories?
I think that's what keeps the legends hidden, to be real with you, because this ain't terrain that anybody can just go walk around in. Like, you have to train for this, and in martial arts, that's what it's all about. Leveling up, the next step, the next step, the next step. A lot of people don't have that patience, perseverance, finances to be able to get them into the places that we're able to get and keep looking. Because I'm going to tell you right now, it's mental. And I find myself out there coaching myself like I'm in a fight. Like, it's okay. That's just round 2. One more round. You got it. Dig one more hole, because you'll never know if you don't dig a hole, So at the end of the day, it's just tough, but it makes you tougher. So yeah, BC, the land, it's beautiful, but it's unforgiving. It hides everything. You can be staring at something and then you just turn the corner at a different angle and it's a whole nother thing, let alone finding your way back in these woods is tough, Like, thank God we have the new technology now, but a lot of those places have dead zones that don't work from the canopy. Even satellite has challenges in some of these places. So yeah, the land is the star of the show. There's no doubt about that, because we're seeing places that nobody has seen for a very long time. And we're able to share it with people all over the world. So that in itself is pretty cool. But yeah, the land is amazing in BC. And so is Calgary, though. I love Alberta. Okay, yeah, Alberta's a fighting state too. So, yeah, province, I should say. Hey, they'd love to hear state. They're darn near American. So.
Pretty much, yeah. When you're out there and you're going through the terrain, do you think about the prospectors of, even 100 years ago or 150 years ago who, they didn't have GPS. They were alone, like you said, and they're doing this all by hand. Whereas, you have a crew around you. You have that kind of that immediate work family around you that you can draw support from. You have GPS, you have satellite, like you have all of this. Do you think about what it was like for them?
Every time I'm out there, I do, right? But the one thing I want to add in, the production is not our crew. Okay? If anything, they want you to fail because that makes good TV. They're just there to document. The only team we have is our squad right here. And the reality of that is those expeditions, like the Lemon Lost Mine, had 15 prospectors that came straight out of the gold fields. You know what I mean? That's like, you might as well multiply that by 10. They know what they're doing. They are the hardest working men on the land out there. So like, that's a miniature army. We're out there with 4 regular people. You know what I mean? Like we are soft generation compared to them, you know? So if anything, our tech almost just helps us even be able to compete, you know? So some of these places we'll go, we go out to Old Pierre Mountain and they want us to cross Iceworm Creek, the same place where Peter Pierre slipped and broke his hip. And then they're like, let's go across this river. And it's like, wait, you talking about the same river that Peter Pierre slipped and busted his hip? And that's where you want me to go right now. It's like, okay, you know, like, let's get her done. But so, I think about that constantly. But the moment we pass where they went, that's all new territory. That's us. So for me, I just like competing. I like winning and I like gold.
When you cross that territory, you know, like you said, you cross that point, do you think, you know, I'm the first person to see this tree, for example, in 200 years or whatever it might be? It's like being on another planet. You're, you know, the first person to step here in who knows how long.
I'm so glad you said that, because I, in my mind, feel like I'm on Star Trek and this is a whole new planet. And I might as well have my little recorder thing come out, because it's like, it is like that, you know, and it's the closest I'll probably ever get to that. So for me, just the experience of exploring is huge. But man, when you pull stuff out the ground, you know, nobody has seen that for 100 years. It hasn't seen the sun when it falls apart in your hand and the patina of the metal. Like, I've never seen metal act like this when it's over 100 years old. It starts to become fibrous and split apart like a piece of wood. And it's like, to see the amount of effort that was put in just to forging this metal and forging knives and all this stuff. And then the importance it must have been when they lost it on expedition. You know what I mean? Because I've been out there. You lose stuff. Like this season, I'm taking it super serious. I'm getting tactical. I'm making sure I don't leave no more shovels or knives out there. It's starting to add up. But at least I leave a little bit of myself out there for future explorers too. So yeah, for me, it is pretty cool. The history is what has kept me hooked. And it's made me say, this is what I am. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to stop until we're done.
Yeah, like you said, that's the cool thing to think about, is if you accidentally leave a shovel out there, 100 or 200 years down the road, somebody's picking that up and it's breaking away in their hands. You know, it's that passage of time we don't often think about. Why do you feel that people are drawn to lost mines, stories of these lost mines, whether it's Lost Lemon Mine or with Chulumax Gold or anything like that?
Well, I mean, let's be real, it's gold. And usually when you think mine, it's an unlimited source of gold. And back in the day, they were pulling out tonnage, $11 an ounce. Are you nuts? That's like 2,500 now. It's just crazy, the numbers. So like, we can find their tailing piles and get rich, because they didn't go after small gold. They only went after big gold. So for me, a mine is a mystery in itself. Where is it? How does it work? You go in the ground and you pull out gold. That's great. But man, to find a lost one, the old timers put in first, that means life-changing wealth for you, your family, your friends, everyone you know. Life will be different. I don't even think about, I'm going to get a brand new car or truck. I think about, how am I going to help my family? How am I going to help out my school and students? How can I start making positive changes in the community with wealth like that? And with Catesy, it's like, my God, what's happened to the Catesy people is very, very tough. They went from some of the most beautiful land in BC to be pushed into a bog. A bog. They're literally, when you're on street level, like 4 feet down from the street level in a bog. And right next to them is raised up brand new multi-million-dollar apartments, big, huge industrial, I won't say their name of their company, you know, companies everywhere. And then you've got the natives in a bog. I mean, it's like, it's insulting. So for me, it's like, I feel the need to give back to the Catesy and the First Nations. And I don't want to just give a man a fish. I want to teach them how to fish. This is their land. This is their resources. And sure, First Nation didn't believe in gold before, but they use cash now. Mm-hmm. So who knows what we could do with this find.
What is the process if you find a mine like Lost Lemon or Schlumax or whatever it might be? What's the process with that? Like, I know in the past you stick down a claim and you file it. Is it kind of the same thing? Is it something you file through the government?
Well, technically it should be. Because that's the way it was. But we're doing it the right way. We have all the cameras here. And so, yeah, there's a very strict and stringent process with the MTO. And I'm very thankful for it because I actually ran into one of the resource officers here for the West Coast on Sunshine Coast. They've only got 2. And they're protecting all of our natural resources. So if we don't abide by the honor system, we're screwing ourselves over. This is some of the most beautiful country in the world. And you start throwing arsenic in the water, there goes the salmon supply for life changing. That affects everybody down the coast, all the way up into the valley. Like, it's such a cyclical system that it just takes one spoke to mess up the whole wheel. And for me, after the show's over, I'm actually looking at, worked with law enforcement throughout my martial arts career, but now I'm thinking about it for myself. And being a resource officer, I told him, I was like, thank you. You're Captain Planet. You're the only one out here actually saving it. You know what I mean? And enforcing it. And there's only 2 of you. I was like, I got your back. I'm coming in soon. The show's done. Signing up.
Nice. That's cool. It impacts your life in such a way.
It really does. You become one with the land. And if no one else is helping it, you better, and it just takes one person to spark something. And anything's better than nothing.
Absolutely. So with the Lost Lemon mine, what kind of similarities does it share with, the mine that you're talking about?
Well, it's the wild, wild west. Let's keep it real. We're talking about natives and cowboys and Americans. And, it's just crazy when you think about how life must have been back then, and the only time I can relate is when I'm in the bush with a gun. I hate to say it like that, but you need a firearm as a tool to live out there. Like the animals, the crazies, because we find the crazy ass people out there. The people who choose to live that deep in the woods, some are great, don't get me wrong. Some could use some help. And there's nobody else out there to regulate or check on them but you in that moment of time, right? So for me, it's the wild, wild west, and it's still wild, And so you see the need to go to a place to create your own future and your own fortune if you can. And a lot of people thought they could. And a lot of people have tried. And a lot of people have been successful. Just so many have not, And that's one of the biggest challenges. And I think that's where the legends come in. Is like anybody who does anything, some people are going to fail. Those failures are really looked at and scrutinized and help build upon the mission. The legend. I look at it different now, but you can't blame them. They were adventurers. They were entrepreneurs. There was no tech industry. There was mining and logging, and that's what they chose to do.
Why is it with all of our technology today, we still can't find some of these mines like Schlumax and then the Lost Lemon mine? They remain hidden. If the Lost Lemon mine even existed, there's a whole thing with that, but they remain hidden for a century. Why is it so hard to find these? And I guess the obvious answer is it's the mountains, but
Well, I think it's more than the mountains. It's the vastness of the terrain, right? Just being there is a challenge. You've got to survive. You got to set up base camp. You got to have supplies. Like even Jackson, one of the biggest prospectors to come out of the California fields, the one with the Jackson letter that kind of sparked myself and a lot of the other, how do I say this, settlers in British Columbia. And what it does is it gives you an opportunity to go out there and prove yourself against nature. And BC is bush. It's wild, every nook and cranny. And things that you don't think are things end up being things. And things that you think are things are definitely not what you thought they were. So there's a lot of mystery and misleading. Mika memlus, mine memlus. When I die, the mind dies. Now there's a secret piece of information in there. In my mind, I believe that he knows he needs to shore up something or else the erosion alone is going to hide it. So, I mean, it's a constant struggle against nature. It changes every season. So, yeah, it makes sense that these little holes get covered up. Pretty much, it's like a pore on your skin. Like, good luck finding it again. You know what I mean? It's pretty small. Yeah, in my opinion.
why is a curse kind of something that's always seems to be attached to Lost Lemon Mine? Same thing. There's a curse for anybody who finds it. This has a curse. So why is that often the part of a legend with a mine, whether it's these two or other mines?
Well, let's start with the Lost Lemon Mine. Okay, like it started on murder. Okay? Like he split dude's head open with an axe over an argument about let's get gold now or get gold later. Okay, so just right out of the gate, that lemon guy, something was wrong with his head. He was evil. That's evil. You go and kill your mining partner because you did what you came out here to do. So, I mean, it was birthed in blood. Let's keep it real. So going forward from there, everything attached to the lemon mine, in my opinion, from what I've seen, was already tainted. And then you're bringing in a bunch of, hardened Americans and you've got the priest using the half-breeds. It's like everybody's using each other all on the basis of a tainted murder, all because of gold. How could it not be cursed? So what I found from, Don's teachings on our show and along this journey is that greed is the curse. We're the ones who make it cursed. It's man that's coming out into the land and causing all this, killing each other, hiding stuff, stealing stuff. And it's like, it brings out the worst in people. And I don't like that, like I love going out panning. I like finding gold. I don't like murdering my friends. Like, I mean, how do you get to that level, But we're in a different time, in a different era. Our needs are met. Their needs were not. So who am I to judge them? I didn't come up like that, but you definitely see how cursed follows gold and mysteries, it's hand in hand.
You mentioned how, finding the mine and the gold could be life-changing and you'd want to pay it forward and everything. Is another big part of it solving the mystery and being able to be like, I found this and, I've closed the book on this or whatever it might be?
Well, I'm going to be real with you. Growing up of, person of color, I experienced things different in life. And I've been hated on for no reason at all. I had to figure this shit up. Excuse my language. But the reality is, it's like I related with Sloop. I was the black sheep of my family. I was on the outside, always looking in. I didn't give a damn. I'd rather be in the woods. And so I was seeing these similarities. And then when I hear about, he was the murderer of this and he murdered these people too, and you don't know. And I said, the crazy brash Indian. And then we go and find out he's an 84-year-old man. Like, come on. They didn't even use the right picture. They just like, here's a tough guy, native. Let's throw him as Slumak. So as I started researching and seeing all this that went with my gut feeling, it was like, wow, he got done dirty. And it's like, that's not right for anybody. But I mean, since his death, they have dragged his name through the mud, And it's like, that ain't right or fair for anybody. The least we can do is set the record straight. So as long as we can get that out, people to understand that people weren't treated right back in the day, and we should judge them on the content of their character, not their color of their skin. And the reality is, Slumak was a prime example of that all throughout the newspapers, all throughout history. Like, it didn't get better. It just got worse. And then, the show happened. A group of people came together. They wanted to tell the history. I'm the one who wants to get the gold. They all want to tell the history. I thought they were crazy, but I get it because the history's the gold. I mean, it really is. It's showing like this works. People coming together of diverse backgrounds, working together, not telling each other who they are, or what their problems are, this, that, and the third. Let's just work together. Let's just get it done. And let's show by example. And that's why I love this team, because at the end of the day, we're a unique bunch. A motley crew, they say, but it works, and everybody has their own strengths and abilities. And in the end, it's fun. I wouldn't even be here if I wasn't enjoying myself going forward. So Yeah.
And then after this, do you think you'll eventually take a crack at finding the Lost Lemon Mine?
Well, I ain't stopping. I'm going to tell you that right now. On my off time now, this is what I do. I just got out of some limestone caves in a Spanish island where the Spanish were on the West Coast. People ain't even talking about that stuff. I found pieces of a shipwreck from at least early 1800s out here. And I'm just like, this land is covered. And this is just BC? It's like, don't let me get back to Australia. You know what I mean? It's like you just pick up gold nuggets there. So yeah, 100%. It's weird because I never really like to call myself a prospector. I just like getting gold. For me, it's always learning process. Like nobody's going to know everything, every stone and everything out there. You're constantly learning. There's very few chances to continue learning in life. This is one of them. Every time I'm out in the field, I find something new. The adventure, the mystery, the motivation, because you've got a history out there now on top of treasure. So it's like you're going to school, you find treasure, you get rewarded for it, you find artifacts, you're contributing to history. It's like, why wouldn't I do this for the rest of my life? Mm-hmm. So yeah, Lost Lemon Mine and beyond. and I have a theory on the Lemon Mine too.
Oh,
I don't know
if
we'll say that on here.
Let's hear it.
Well, here's the thing, right? So with the Lost Lemon Mine, everybody keeps looking in the same area and coming up short. Now, just the phrase Lost Lemon Mine kind of throws things off a little bit, I think, because technically speaking, from the sounds of it, they came across placer gold. Okay. In my opinion, from what I read, it didn't sound like they were drilling and mining, because even to start the mine, you need to see the vein. So what a prospector will do is he'll start looking for colors in the river first and then work his way up. If he's got color, well, then we find the source. So I'm believing that nug they found was most likely placer, and they knew that the area was rich in theory. But where did that creek come from? Where was the original water flow of that creek? Because a lot of the times you'll find, oh, this season it's here. Well, for 1,000 seasons, it was over here. So where the water deposits, you don't know unless you trace back to the original source. One thing that I noticed is that along the American border with Alberta is a national park. Now, when was that national park created?
That would have been Waterton, I think, probably early 1900s, like 1910s-ish.
Mm-hmm. After or before this legend, do you know? Because the geologists
it would definitely be after.
You know, and so for me, what I've noticed with governments, well, we won't say any in particular, they tend to put national parks on things where they know something is, and it kind of creates a vault. Now, for me, I know that they work with the best. They know their land too, So I find it peculiar that on the American border, in that far corner, on the border of BC, Alberta knew something about this area. There's also Pincher Creek that comes, I believe, from the States into Alberta. Does it flow that way or does it flow in reverse? I'm not sure because I haven't had boots on the ground.
I think it flows into the United States. I think it does.
Are you sure?
I don't know for sure, though.
From the source, it looked like it flowed because I know that it's a higher mountain range of the topography of the maps that I looked at. It looked like it flew kind of into that area. Now, are you familiar with Bill Barley?
No.
Bill Barley, Gold and Ghost Trails and all this stuff. Well, he's like the Mr. Rogers of prospecting. And he's a legend in BC. And he had a theory that some of the richest gold in BC was actually along that border in that area. The challenge was there was so much overburden that no one would be able to get to it with modern mining methods. So if he says there's gold there, I believe there's gold there. Now, if that river actually goes close to that area, the source of the gold might be a lot farther south than they're actually looking for. And if everyone's looking for a mine, if they didn't mine, well, where's the source of the placer? Let's start there. So I'm thinking that it's a lot further south, and I think it traveled a lot farther than they think and possibly was deposited in that area. Hence why some of the best prospectors around couldn't find it. I mean, that says something right there too. It's not like they don't know how to find gold. So technically speaking, when you put that together, a gold-rich area, a national park, and a creek that starts from that gold-rich area and ends up in that area, the only thing to actually match the geology, because a lot of geologists say there's no gold east of the Rockies, right? So that makes more sense to me than a mine from a crazy murderer who killed his prospecting partner. That's as worse as you can get, you know? So, yeah. So it might just be a lemon, but it actually might be, you know, a rich gold placer claim too. Mm-hmm. And to find that old river, that's where I think it would be, because that's where it would have been for the longest. And we've had so much environmental change with, you know, this climate stuff going on. It's like, yeah, it's not going to be the same creek as it was back then. So
absolutely,
definitely changes the game.
And then my last question is just, you know, where can people see the show? I know the podcast is coming on June 6th. And
that's right.
This will come out before that. And, you know, where can everybody find it? Or do you have any social media people can follow you at?
Yeah, definitely. Let me start off with the podcast first. And I just want to say this for those who've actually watched the show, the podcast is next level. Like, I learned more on this podcast than I learned in 20 years looking for Slumach's gold. Like, what does that say? And the cool thing is it's actually done in a format with like sound effects, and it's kind of like sucks you into the past. It's like you're there in the courtroom listening to Slumach before he gets hung, and then finding out like this is a murder mystery. Like, I had no idea that the richest family in New Westminster ended up paying for a steamship for a posse to go up into the bush and find one old native. That didn't even make sense. So it's like, what's really going on here? So like, we've got some of the richest families. We've got the sheriffs. We've got the judges system. We've got the oldest city in BC, and everybody's out to get Slumach. Why? No. You know, that's the mystery. And so as we delve into this, I mean, it's getting better and bigger as we go. So the podcast is pretty dope because it definitely complements the show. As far as I go, you can find me at BC Stand Up on Instagram, A. Crew Williams on Facebook. And we actually have a Dead Man's Curse IG page that they just started up way after the show launched, but they're getting started and they've got lots of content. And yeah, June 7th, we drop our podcast, and you can find it available anywhere you get your favorite podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever you download.
This show is researched, produced, and written by me, Craig Baird, with the help of Dila Velasquez. Audio production and design by Rosalind Kufor. If this is your first time listening and you like what you heard, please take a moment and give us a 5-star review to help other people find these amazing stories. And there are so many for you to sink your teeth into. If you enjoy this podcast, then please check out my other podcasts, From John to Justin, Canada, A Yearly Journey, Pucks and Cups, and Canada's Great War. We love hearing from you, so if you have a show topic you want me to cover, email me at craig@canadaehx.com or stop by my website and social media. I'll include all of those in my show notes. Until next time, I'm Craig Baird, and this is Canadian History X.